that they wanted to distance themselves from us because they were afraid our presence would damage their academic reputation. So there is that aspect as well that needs to be taken into consideration. But as an ID person, I certainly don't want to impugn any theistic evolutionists and the integrity of their motives for holding their position. And I think that's about it.
I'll just mention two things, and then we'll take questions. One is, I hope any advocate of ID will welcome if I or another theistic evolution provides a vigorous scientific critique of scientific claims. The junk DNA, I'd like to tear into that slide, okay?
Feel free, although I have to say I'm not the one who is most qualified to answer your objections. I defer.
All right.
It's going to be a topic tomorrow.
All right. But good. That's precisely what I want. I want to hear vigorous critiques of scientific ideas back and forth. The other thing I would point out in your slideshow, and this is true of a lot of presentations I've seen, the use of the word undirected. And I'd like to really call attention to that because, of course, your average atheist would insist that undirected is part of evolution. But your average theistic evolutionist would not say undirected. If you look back at that 3x3 grid, direction happens in at least 2/3 of it, but in an undetectable way. So I think it's fair to say that undirected is a necessary part of atheistic evolution. I don't think it's fair to say undirected is a necessary part of evolutionary biology or the theory of evolution. So that's the point I would like to make in tweaking rhetoric into the future.
Fair enough.
All right, you first.
Yes, probably the first question. Can y'all just clarify, I know the answer to this, but the difference between ID, little and big ID, because I think this will help to resolve these problems. And I think here's a big area of overlap. Some of the things that Bruce talked about is ID, things that the evolution could also accept as examples of intelligence things. I think the real rub is particularly with regard to this biological evolution. You can just clarify the difference between little ID and big ID.
The essential question is, what's the difference between ID not capitalized and ID capitalized? And I think that the essence would be whether design is detectable in nature through specific methodologies. And the ID advocates would say, yes, we can infer an intelligent cause has been operative from the presence of specified complex information that exceeds, in its improbability, the universal probability bound, or some such argument to that effect. Whereas the theistic evolutionists would acknowledge small case intelligent design behind nature, generally speaking, and in the beauty of its laws and structures. Is that fair?
I lay it out differently. I think the way I lay out that question is, the question of detectability, defining detectability. When I read the writings of intelligent design advocates and try and summarize them for myself, I break it into a two-step problem. The first is a question of the calculation of the probabilities. What is the probability that some form of complexity, something like we have, could evolve via known natural mechanisms? Very probable or very, very improbable? If the answer is very, very improbable, then you ask, what kinds of improbable events or situations do we say are designed and what sort don't we? And I call this a philosophical argument, although others would call it different. And I call it you could call it a best inference answer, not a rigid proof, but say under certain circumstances, we say that this improbable event being intelligently designed is far more plausible than arguments in terms of, well, that was just chance or multiple universes or maybe it's just something we don't know. So It's a strong plausibility argument, and in that form, I accept the structure of detectability of design.
I think that's a fair characterization. Actually, when we make a design argument, we make it against our background knowledge of everything that we know. And on the basis of what we know at a given point in time, we can say that natural processes, insofar as we understand them, are not sufficient to the generation of a particular phenomenon, but an intelligent cause is. And so we make a defeasible claim, a defeasible design inference, if you like, that so far as we can tell at this point in time, it's warranted to assert that this particular structure was the result of an intelligent cause.
Ted, and then Ted, I guess. A quick repeat that for the tape. Ted Davis, very knowledgeable in this area, points out regarding the myth that theistic evolutionists don't confront atheism. Some critics of theistic evolution have pretty much lived their whole life equating Darwinian evolution with atheism. So, if it's not an attack on evolution, then it's not an attack. If it's not an attack on evolution, it's not an attack on atheism. That's how they've been thinking all their life, and that's the form they recognize. I think that's probably fair for some people who make this claim.
Two-part question, if I may, about ID. One is, it seems that intelligent design can be used to explain any mystery that exists at present. And so the question is, at what point along the process of study would you say let's invoke intelligent design? What's your methodology there? Part two is, if I may ask,
when you say intelligent design can be invoked, oh, sorry. The question seemed to be, so far as I understand it, that intelligent design can be invoked to explain anything that we don't understand at this point in time. So isn't it vacuous then as an explanatory strategy, or is it?
When do you say, systematically, when do you say we've studied this long enough, let's now invoke intelligent design, and when you follow part two, better contextualize that. What then is your goal when you invoke intelligent design? What are the implications there? Are you saying that we should really stop studying this and redirect our resources now to other things?
No, not at all. I would in part say that if intelligence has been detected, then we can start a process of examining reverse engineering sorts of questions and examine how it's put together. And we can expand upon that and there are all sorts of different research strategies or things one might expect to find from things that are engineered or about things that are engineered, and things that we can take from nature in terms of the design. I'm not phrasing this very well, am I? So it doesn't mean a cessation of research. So, for instance, there was the prediction of junk DNA, so of junk DNA not being junk. So if it's not junk, then what is its function becomes the question. If it's not just evolutionary flotsam and jetsam, what's it doing? How does the operating system function?